Please come forward. Mr. Warren Smokey Thomas, President of OPSEU. Mr. Thomas, the committee is puzzling, or at least the folks on this side, where the name Smokey comes from, but perhaps they'll share that somewhere in their remarks. Please be seated, introduce yourselves, your colleague, and you have 5 minutes to make your introductory remarks, beginning now.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Warren and Smokey Thomas. I've lived and worked here in Ontario for my whole life. For the past 10 years, I've been honored to serve as the president of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, OPSEU. We're one of the biggest unions in the province, representing 130,000 Ontario workers from Cornwall to Kenora. Bill 132 is terrible legislation, and I urge you to stop it. It hurts all my members because it hurts all Ontarians, except the very richest. It delivers a 1-2 punch. Punch 1, in the medium and long term, it will hike everybody's hydro rates even higher than they are today. Over the past 20 years, our rates have gone up 300%. The wages of OPSEU members haven't gone up 300%. They've barely kept pace with inflation. For some of my members and many other Ontarians, wages have actually fallen against inflation. People are feeling the real pain because of hydro rates, having to sell their houses, having to choose between heating and eating. The other day, one of my members working at ODSP talked to a woman who had moved her bed into her kitchen, the only room she could afford to heat. Bill 132 will push hydro rates even higher. Everyone but the richest will suffer. Punch 2. Bill 132 will rob our public services of even more money. Colleges, jails, and liquor stores have to absorb those hydro hikes. Hospitals in London, Sudbury, and Sault Ste. Marie have been in the news because they've been forced to spend millions more on hydro. That's millions less for patients. Bill 132 will push rates even higher, leaving public services with even less to serve you, your family and your community, and again, everyone but the richest will suffer. It doesn't have to be this way. Bill 132 is this government's desperate attempt to address a serious problem in our hydro system. The problem isn't the workers, the problem isn't green energy, the problem isn't the problem is privatization. Fix to privatization and the need for Bill 132 disappears. I'll go into more details about that in a moment, but first I want to say a few personal words. I, like 80% of Ontarians, oppose privatization of hydro. I travel this province extensively, talking to my members and everyday working people, seniors and young people trying to scratch out an existence. In arenas, cafes, at gas stations, everywhere I go, people feel betrayed, and that betrayal is manifesting in ways that I've never quite seen before. People know the Win Liberals have rigged the game against them. They know Ed Clark's opinion matters more than theirs. And how are the Liberals responding to our rage? With more betrayal. In their desperate rush to lower our hydro rates before the election next summer, they're betraying our children. They're buying political cover today by selling out the generations of tomorrow. According to one estimate I've seen, Bill 132 will force Ontarians to pay an extra $60 billion for hydro over the next 20 years. So if I sound angry, it's because I am. I'm furious because, like I said, we don't have to do this. Instead, let's fix the real problem, privatization. My union is a big supporter of a movement called We Own It. It's an evidence-based campaign to spread the word that privatization costs us more. And the privatization of hydro has certainly cost us more. Here's a short history. In the late 90s, the Conservatives deregulated hydro rates, and those rates immediately started to climb. In 2000, the Conservatives sold off Bruce Nuclear Station. Now the owners make up to $1 billion in profit every year. If we kept that profit, our rates would be lower. In 2007, the Liberals privatized green energy. No public solar or wind allowed. While private solar and wind owners are guaranteed very high prices, our rates climbed to meet those prices. In 2010, the Liberals' gas plant scandal. We pay $1 billion to wealthy investors and get nothing in return. In 2015, Hydro One privatization. We lose up to $500 million a year in revenue. The financiers and the CEO make millions while our hydro rates continue to climb, now 300% higher than they were in 2000. The consequences of these higher rates have been severe. The pulp and paper industry has lost 60% of its jobs. Manufacturing has lost more than 300,000 jobs. The Chamber of Commerce says high rates will force 20,000 more businesses to close or move in the next few years. And as I said before, public services are being forced to divert millions from our communities, giving that money instead to wealthy hydro investors. Which brings me back to Bill 132. It's terribly misguided. It's like using your credit card to make a mortgage payment. It only makes our problems worse in the long run. To really fix our hydro problems, this government must end hydro privatization. It's not too late to stop Bill 132. It's not too late to reverse the privatization of hydro. It's not too late to bring green energy back under accountable and affordable public ownership and control. It's not too late to see Ontario prosper again under affordable and stable rates of public hydro.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. The PC side, Mr. Smith.
Good to see you this afternoon. Do you have another alternative here that would provide relief right now for ratepayers in the province? Clearly, this one doesn't do anything, and we know that from that confidential document that was leaked by the whistleblower that the price of electricity is going to spike. But do you have any idea on what we could do right now to decrease?
I think right now they could stop privatization any more of it, take stock of it, and when opportunities present themselves to bring stuff back into public ownership, take that profit motive out of something that should be for people.
Well, and you talked about the fact that the cost of electricity is causing problems for our institutions like our correctional facilities, but they're not going to benefit from this plan either. So the cost of electricity at these types of institutions isn't even covered by this plan. And I'm sure with your members representing most of the workers in these facilities, that's got to be a concern. Are you making your members aware of the shortcomings of this bill?
Yes, we are through direct emails to our members, but also through the We Own It campaign.
Okay, so I know you're opposed to the privatization aspect of what's going on here, which isn't really included in this piece of legislation. Are you opposed to privatization of the electricity sector in all aspects?
Yes.
So I know one arm, OPSEU, is involved with a number of renewable energy contracts like the ones that are covered in Bill 132. Is there a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Conflict of interest?
Conflict of interest, yeah.
Well, yes, actually, I'm in quite a heated debate with pension plans over the kind of things they invest in. And I'm opposed to investing in them investing in P3s. I'm opposed to investing in the Federal Infrastructure Bank P3s in Ontario. So I'm in quite an arduous debate with some people in the pension world. I know the unions, I might add, that don't see a problem with it. So.
Right. When you're talking with your members, and the government is telling them that they're going to save 25% or maybe more if they're in a rural or remote area, what is their reaction when they hear that?
Well, they figured it out.
Yeah.
It's just going to offload the costs onto their kids and their grandkids, and they really don't believe that they'll see the savings as promised.
Thank you.
Smokey, I just have one. You say in here the problem isn't green energy, but there's a lot of profit being made by private consortiums. Yeah. So do you totally agree with that, or was that kind of a general statement? There's a lot of money being made by private consortiums. It is part of the problem because we're paying exorbitant rates compared to what we could do. We're letting water flow at Niagara Falls. We're paying nuclear plants to not produce, and we're venting steam.
I agree with everything you said. What the thing about green energy was to make the point that the rates are absolutely exorbitant.
Mr. Tabbins.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Smokey, for being here this afternoon. You wanted to finish that sentence when you were so impolitely gavelled down.
Well, because I know people in Niagara Falls, I've gone through some of those plants. They're just divert water. I've been through Bruce when they just blow the steam in the air. What a waste! Because it's windy out. You bypass dirt cheap energy for stuff that's outrageously expensive. So I just don't understand the logic in that.
So can you speak to why privatization has driven up costs in Ontario? The Bruce plant is one that comes to mind. You mentioned it in your speech. Could you talk about the profits that are flowing out of our pockets?
Yeah, just everything they've privatized, you introduce a profit motive. So whether it be our plowing our highways, maintaining highways, laboratory services, hydro, everything goes up. Lab services in Ontario cost, the Minister of Health actually admits that laboratory tests are 40% more in privatized labs than they are in hospital labs, 40% more. And when I asked him, what are you going to do about that? He said, well, that train's left the station. I said, well, there's a turnaround in every track somewhere, bring them back. So everything that's ever been privatized, you introduce a profit motive, and then you introduce what they call efficiencies, which drives down workers' wages, benefits, everything else. So it's just a spiral down. So the P3 is $8 billion. Like everything the Auditor General has said about Liberal plans is absolutely right on, and yet they just seem to want to say, I'm sorry, and move on. So I guess I put it this way. Public services should be for people, not profit. And every time you privatize something, we call it the pay more, get less plan.
And so you expect that the plan that's been put forward by the Liberals, the subject of this committee hearing today, is just going to raise our prices in the long run. In fact, not that long a run.
No, not that long, and I predict it will raise. Everybody I talk to in the business world agrees. And I think it really is just a blatant grab to try and get elected next year.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tevens, and with notice, a polite gavel coming down like that. And now we're moving to the government side, Mr. Delaney.
I've been hit harder, don't worry about it.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Thomas, I think while you were in the room, the Ontario Energy Board, who approve rates, have just said clearly, multiple times, that the ownership structure of Hydro One does not affect electricity prices. You say the opposite. On what basis?
Well, I don't know. You explain to me how it's gone up 300% then. Explain that to me. That's my answer to your question. Explain to me how they've gone up 300% after being privatized.
Now, you've taken a position with regard to some of the issues you discussed, and you're at odds with the power workers. How's that?
Well, I just don't think public services, which Hydro is, should have ever been privatized.
As well, the Society of Engineering Professionals take the opposite position that you do, and both of those are collective bargaining units that actually work in the sector. What
Good for them.
explanation do you
They're
have?
entitled to their opinion and entitled to run their business the way they see fit. I just don't happen to agree.
Thank you very much, Chair. Those are our questions.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, and thanks to you, Mr. Thomas, for your deputation on behalf of OPSEU.